My name is Danielle. 32. I was the quiet one. The sensitive boy in a house full of noise, testosterone, and disappointment. My older brother, Marcus, golden child. Varsity athlete. Charmer. Every mother's dream. Every girl's fantasy. And every one of my nightmares wrapped in a smug, perfect smile. You ever sit in silence so long, the walls start to whisper back. That's where I am now. Talking to shadows. Staring at cracks in the concrete like they've got answers. This is my confession. Not because I want forgiveness. But because I want you to understand why I did what I did. Why I had to. I wasn't always this hollow. There was a time I laughed easily. Smiled without checking the room first. A time when I still believed in family, in forever, and in love that wouldn't rot in your mouth like spoiled meat. I grew up watching my mother wipe his messes with one hand while pushing me away with the other. You're too soft, she'd say. You let people walk all over you. Maybe she was right. I let Marcus throw punches in the hallway and pretend they were jokes. I let classmates fill my locker with tampons and call me Danielle. I let it happen. All of it. Because I thought if I just stayed kind, if I just kept my head down, life would reward me for it one day. And for a while, it seemed like it had. I met her, her name was Alina, soft voice. Eyes like stormy glass. The kind of girl who saw broken things and wanted to fix them. We met at a used bookstore, the only place I felt safe. She was standing in the poetry aisle, running her fingers over a tattered Sylvia Plath. I made a joke about tragic endings. She smiled like I was worth listening to. She saw me. Not Marcus. Not my scars or silence. Me. We dated for 4 years. Built a life in the shadows of my family's indifference. I proposed last fall under the golden trees in Autumn Ridge Park. She said yes through tears. And for once, I believed I had won. Not over Marcus. But over the sadness that had made a home inside me. We moved into a small townhouse just outside the city. Clean lines. Warm kitchen. A garden she was always forgetting to water. We were planning our wedding for the following summer. It felt real. Solid. Like it would last. I should have known it was too quiet. Peace is always the eye of the storm. The night I knew something was wrong, I came home early. Work had been hell, 2 clients pulled out, my boss was on my back. All I wanted was Alina. Her voice. Her touch. The way she hummed when she cooked, but the house was quiet, too quiet. I remember the way the doorknob felt in my hand, sweaty. Like it didn't want to turn. I stepped inside. Shoes kicked off. Keys on the hook. And then I heard it. A creak upstairs. Followed by a whisper. Then another creak. Laughter. I froze. I don't know how long I stood there, listening to my heart pound. Part of me, maybe the child still praying for love, told me I was being paranoid. That it was just the TV. Or a phone call, but I knew. I walked up those stairs like a ghost in my own life. I didn't want to open the bedroom door. Didn't want to see what my soul already knew, but I did, and I saw them, Marcus, Alina, tangled, naked, sweaty, laughing, like I was the punchline to a joke they'd been telling for months. They didn't even see me at first. I stood there for at least 10 seconds, 10 long seconds of their betrayal vibrating in my skull, then Marcus looked up, and he smiled. Like this was funny. Like he'd won again, Alina gasped. Covered herself. Tried to say something. But I was already walking backward. Down the stairs. Out the front door. Into the cold, black night. I didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't punch a wall like they do in the movies. I just walked, block after block, until the night swallowed me whole. You see. That was the moment I died. That was when Danielle, the quiet, hopeful one, was buried. Something else clawed its way out, something colder, quieter, darker. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the basement, staring at the old garden tools, the bags of lime, the shovel, and that's when the idea came, clear, pure, righteous. I wouldn't scream, I wouldn't cry, I would bury them. That light went out the moment I saw them together. It didn't dim. It died. That night, I wandered the streets until my feet ached and the sky turned the color of bruises. I ended up sitting on the edge of a frozen lake, staring at my reflection in the ice. I didn't recognize myself. Not because I looked different, but because I no longer felt human. My phone buzzed in my pocket, I ignored it, then again. And again, Alina. Marcus. Even Mom, probably because Marcus had spun the story first, he always did. I turned it off and dropped it in the snow. Silence. That was better. The next morning, I went home. Not to the townhouse, no, I went back to the house I grew up in. The house where Marcus carved his name into every damn corner like it belonged to him. Mom looked surprised to see me. She said I looked tired. I told her I just needed to be somewhere quiet. Somewhere familiar. She offered me coffee. I stared at the steam curling out of the mug and wondered how many lies had been told over that same table. She said nothing about the wedding, said nothing about Marcus. She already knew. And she did nothing. That's when I knew, they were all in on it, maybe not the act itself, but the rot. The betrayal. They let Marcus become this thing that could take and take and take, and never be held accountable, but I would hold him accountable, and Alina too. The moment that broke me wasn't the bedroom scene, it was what happened 4 days later. They came to me. Together, knocked on my door, laughing like it was some awkward high school mix-up, like this was something we could joke about in a few years. Marcus stood there in his leather jacket, hands in his pockets, smug as ever. Alina looked tired. Eyes puffy. Lips trembling. But she stood next to him, and that told me everything. You deserve to hear it from us, Marcus said. I didn't reply. I just stepped aside and let them in, not because I forgave them, but because I needed to hear the lie from their mouths. Alina went first. It started a few months ago. After that fight we had, remember? You said I didn't listen to you anymore. I was upset. I needed someone to talk to and Marcus was there. She said it like it was reasonable. Like betrayal had a season and she just caught it early. I looked at Marcus, he just shrugged. She came to me. I didn't chase her, he said. It just happened, man. It just happened, man, like sleeping with your brother's fiancée was on par with spilling a drink on the carpet. I asked them one question. Just one, were you going to tell me before the wedding? Marcus hesitated. Alina opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. We didn't want to hurt you, she whispered, and in that moment, I saw it again, that smile, that same crooked little smirk Marcus wore when he used to flush my sketchbooks down the toilet. Or when he told my 8th grade crush I was gay just to humiliate me in front of the whole cafeteria. That smirk that said, I win again, that's when it happened. Something inside me twisted. Shifted, uncoiled, my chest didn't tighten, it opened. Like something had been waiting in there for years, and now. Now it was free. I didn't raise my voice, didn't slam a fist or scream them out the door. Instead, I made them tea. Chamomile. With honey. They sat at the kitchen table while I boiled water, my back turned, the faint sound of the kettle a lullaby to the madness blooming in my skull. I stirred the tea slowly, watched the honey swirl, tasted it with a silver spoon. Everything tastes sweeter when it's your last cup. "Let's take a drive," I said after we finished, "to the cabin. One last time. For old time's sake." Alina hesitated. Marcus didn't. He clapped me on the back like we were brothers again. "Hell yeah, man. Let's get some beers on the way." Alina just nodded, eyes cloudy. Maybe part of her knew, maybe part of her wanted it. I packed a few things: rope, a shovel, the old keys to the hunting cabin. They didn't even question it. That's the thing about betrayers. They never think you'll betray them back. The cabin sat at the edge of Briar Hollow, deep enough in the woods that no one would hear screams over the rustle of dead leaves. We used to come out here when we were kids. Dad taught us how to shoot cans off stumps, how to build fires. We buried a dog here once, Max. He was the only living thing that ever loved me without conditions. Fitting, really. As we drove, Marcus told stories like this was a road trip. Alina stayed quiet. The sun began to set behind the pine trees, casting long shadows across the gravel path. By the time we reached the clearing, the world was gold and blood, perfect. They got out of the car. Stretched. Laughed. I stayed in the driver's seat for a moment, closed my eyes, breathed. When I stepped out, I wasn't Daniel anymore. I was the end. That night, under the trees, I stopped pretending. I wasn't Daniel anymore, not the soft-spoken little brother. Not the quiet fiancé. Not the failure. I was the consequence. They didn't know it yet, but they were already dead. The cabin door groaned like it remembered us. Inside, dust danced through moonlight slicing in from broken window panes. The place smelled like pine rot and forgotten things. Marcus dumped the beers on the counter. Alina sat down on the old plaid couch, arms crossed, rubbing her palms together like she was cold, even though the fire was already crackling in the hearth. I had started it the moment we arrived. A good fire hides a lot of sounds. She looked at me. "Why did you bring us here?" I smiled. "We used to love this place, remember? Before everything got complicated." Marcus was already 2 beers in. "Dude, this is exactly what we needed," he slurred. "Get past all the drama. Reset." Reset, that word echoed in my head like a bullet inside a metal drum. While they drank and joked, I stepped outside, walked around the cabin, felt the cold soil beneath my boots. It had rained last week. The ground was soft, the shovel was in the trunk, wrapped in a blanket, so was the rope, and the tarp. I dug for 3 hours, behind the cabin, under the crooked arm of the pine that bent like it was bowing to death. I carved the earth open like a wound. Each shovel of dirt was a heartbeat, each grunt of effort, a funeral bell. It wasn't just a grave. It was a statement. They were going to rot together, the same way they tore me apart together. When I went back inside, my hands were blistered, my shirt stuck to my back. They didn't notice, too busy clinking bottles and reminiscing about some trip we took as teenagers. I remember that trip too. That was the first time Marcus convinced a girl I liked to sneak into his tent instead of mine. Everything they took from me, they laughed about it like it was folklore. Their shared mythology, and I had been the joke in every chapter, but not anymore. I stood in the doorway, watching them. My eyes stung from sweat and dirt. But I didn't blink, not once. That's when something shifted again, not in my body, in the room. The air got heavier, the shadows stretched a little too long, the fire hissed like it had a secret, and something entered me. I don't have words for it, not really. It was like every ounce of pain I'd swallowed, every humiliation I'd folded into a smile, it all opened up inside me. Like my ribs cracked outward and let something else wear my skin. I didn't feel human, I felt ancient. Like every wronged soul before me had climbed into my bones to take part in what I was about to do. The Daniel they knew, the one who trembled, the one who wept, he was gone, and what stood there now was colder than the grave I'd dug. Let's play a game, I said. Alina flinched. Marcus chuckled, still weird, huh? He said. Alright, what game? I walked to the table, pulled out a small velvet pouch I had slipped into my coat before we left. Cards. Inside the pouch were old tarot cards, my mother's. Though she never used them. She said they were cursed. Said she found them in the attic after my grandmother died and never touched them again. Good, that made them perfect. I shuffled slowly. Methodically. The sound of the cards whispering against each other felt like voices from the other side. I handed Marcus the deck. Pick one. He scoffed but did it. Pulled one out and turned it over. The tower, lightning splitting a building. People falling. Chaos, Alina gasped. I looked at Marcus and smiled. Interesting, I said. Upheaval. Ruin. Collapse of false structures. Whatever, man. Cards are fake. Alina didn't laugh. Your turn, I said, offering her the deck. She pulled one. Death, of course, it doesn't mean literal death, she whispered, almost like she was trying to convince herself. It means change. I didn't say anything, I just looked at the two of them, Marcus, laughing nervously, Alina, pale as the moon. Then I pulled my card, Judgment. 3 skeletons rising from graves, even I didn't expect that one. I held it up, looks like the game's over. That's when I pulled the gun from under the table. Don't flinch, I didn't fire it, I wasn't going to make it that easy. They screamed. Of course they did. Marcus flipped the table. Alina bolted for the door, but I had planned this. Every window was nailed shut, the only exit was the front door, and the lock was broken. On purpose, I was already standing in front of it. Alina backed away, hands up. Please, Daniel. Please. Marcus grabbed a beer bottle and hurled it at me, missed by a mile. That's when I told them what I saw. What I heard. How I felt when they made me the villain in my own life. Told them about the grave, told them it was ready, and that tonight, they would sleep in it, together. They begged, they cried, they offered me lies wrapped in apologies, but I wasn't listening anymore. Because the thing inside me, the thing that had awakened, was guiding my hands now. I tied them up, dragged them, one at a time. They screamed, I hummed, it was the same tune Alina used to hum while cooking. Funny, huh? I stood over them as they lay in the hole, face to face, so I picked up the shovel, and started burying them, but they weren't dead yet. I made sure they were facing each other, bound at the wrists. Their mouths gagged with fabric I tore from the blanket we used. On our last romantic picnic, I poured in the first few shovels of soil slowly, let it fall on their legs, watched them writhe, watched their eyes lock onto mine, not with hatred, not even fear. Disbelief, because even in that moment, they didn't believe I would finish what I started. They thought I was bluffing, thought this was a cry for help. They were still holding on to the delusion that the Daniel they knew, the doormat, the background character, was going to break down and sob and beg for their forgiveness. But I didn't cry, not once. I remember Marcus trying to speak through the gag. His words came out wet and muffled. I think he was trying to say my name. I didn't care. Instead, I asked him, how many times? He blinked, swallowed, didn't answer. So I drove the shovel down beside his head, hard enough to make the ground shake. He flinched, I smiled. Alina started shaking. Like her whole body was a leaf in the wind. I looked at her next. Did you ever love me? I asked. She didn't look away, she just nodded, slowly. Desperately, and you know what? I believed her, but that didn't change anything. The soil was up to their waists by the time the first sobs turned to screams. They writhed like worms, pulling against the ropes, twisting their legs, kicking up clumps of dirt that sprayed their own faces, but there was no one for miles, no neighbors, no cell signal, just trees, and me, and the grave. I stopped halfway through and lit a cigarette. I hadn't smoked in years, picked it up from the gas station on the way, thought I might want to mark the moment. As I exhaled, I stared down at them, my brother and my fiancée, buried together up to the ribs, gasping like fish in a bucket. The smoke curled around my face, it tasted like justice, and that's when I started talking. I used to dream about the two of you, I said, you know that. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and look over at Alina, wondering if she was dreaming about someone else. And you, Marcus? You were always the storm behind every door I opened. They whimpered. I didn't stop. Do you remember that summer when you two disappeared for a week? You told Mom you were visiting a friend. But I saw the receipts. Motel charges. 2 names. 1 room. Alina shook her head violently. Marcus started sobbing. Too late. Every time I asked her if something was wrong, she told me I was imagining it. You made me believe I was crazy. You stole my reality and replaced it with your lies. I walked to the edge of the grave, kicked a little dirt in Marcus's face. He coughed, choked, and I leaned in real close and whispered. Now you get to imagine things, too. Like what it's going to feel like when the air runs out. When your chest starts to cave in. When the darkness isn't metaphor anymore. The last few shovels of dirt came fast. Alina passed out first, her head slumped to the side, eyes fluttering. I thought about digging her back up, giving her another chance, but then I remembered the voicemail I found on Marcus's phone after they left, her voice, moaning his name like it was a prayer. I dropped the next shovel of dirt on her face, and didn't stop. Marcus didn't scream anymore, he just stared. His face had changed, the arrogance was gone, the charm was gone, all that was left was fear. Real, primal, animal fear, and for the first time in my entire life, I felt bigger than him, so I said goodbye, not with words, but with silence. I covered his face, then his neck, then the top of his head, then I pressed the dirt down with my boot, firm, final, like tucking in a child. After it was done, I sat there for a while. The wind rustled the branches, an owl called out across the trees. The fire back at the cabin still crackled, soft, distant, harmless, and the grave. Still. Quiet. Perfect. You'd never know 2 people were rotting beneath it, that love and betrayal were decomposing in the same soil. I slept in the cabin that night, dreamless, woke up at dawn. Made coffee, wrote 2 letters, 1 for the police. 1 for the press. Neither told the truth. The police were led to believe Marcus and Alina had run off, left their lives behind. Vanished into the woods. There was no evidence, no fingerprints, no blood, just a man abandoned by the people he loved, and no one suspects the quiet ones. I live alone now, moved states, grew a beard. Changed my name, but I still visit the grave, once a year. On the night I buried them, I bring 2 flowers, 1 for her, 1 for him, and I whisper the same thing every time, I remember. Because the truth is, I didn't bury them to punish them. I buried them because that's where betrayal belongs, in the dark, forever. Thanks for watching and don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to this channel.